Welcome to Melt University. This series will help you build your brand, inform you on a variety of career paths, and introduce you to top executives in sports and marketing. Now, here's your host, the president and CEO of Melt, one of the largest independent sports and event marketing agencies in the country, Vince Thompson.
Welcome back, students. Virtual Melt University. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas. Can't believe it. We're hurtling toward Christmas. You're hurtling toward final exams, hurtling toward getting past this crazy semester of virtual learning. But we are having a blast with Virtual Melt University, and we appreciate all the comments and the feedback and the suggestions of the guests. We're hearing from a lot of our guests who are hearing from you. So great job on the follow-up. And we have a very special guest today. I was really looking forward to this for a while. One of my favorite people, and personally and professionally. We go way back. Sharon Byers, the CEO of Ongev right now, previously the Chief Marketing Officer of the American Cancer Society, the largest nonprofit in the country. Before that, a very long, esteemed career at the Coca-Cola Company on the front lines of a lot of their major deals in the sports world and other worlds. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about, things that have inspired her and her leadership. She is a fellow graduate of Auburn University, very active, involved in the university down there as well, loves it, and Georgia State University for accounting. Sharon, welcome to Virtual Melt University.
Hi, Vince. It's so nice to hear your voice, and I'm so excited. This is one of my passion points, as you know, on really focusing on college kids. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you've always been involved, and like I said, I think our listeners will get a treat to date the several thousand of them we've got lined up now. But before we sort of dive into all the things that you have done and are doing, we sort of like to bring it all the way back to when your passion was first ignited, for business and for marketing and for, the achievements and things of that nature. And we always like to say that the college campus is the ultimate professional laboratory, and that our kids, obviously the COVID thing is a little bit of a hiccup right now, but the college campus is the ultimate professional lab. But sort of throw it back to where your original passion was sort of ignited for your business and your career climb. And we've also heard that a lot of people get to college and they were thinking that maybe, hey, I'm going to be a doctor, and then they wind up being, a CMO or a brand manager. But talk about your sort of your personal experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a great question. So I was that student that went to Auburn. I loved Auburn football, but my ability to think through really when I wanted to grow up and when I wanted to graduate was very limited. I just went for the fun and tried to discover where my passions were. So I started off as a major in marine biology and a minor in fashion merchandising. So my poor parents always talked about, what are you going to do? Design clothes for dolphins. And then I had an amazing professor, Dr. Jahara at Auburn, and he and I kind of sat down and I had an introduction to finance through one of his electives, and really got very interested in the business side of sports. And I would say that one conversation with someone that I really respected really kind of took me into the career that has been so fun and so amazing. And I always go back to that one conversation with someone who was really important to me and that I respected.
Mm-hmm. Well, and so think about this, and so several we'll unpack several things you just hit on. Is that the ability to be flexible, particularly now. A lot of kids go to college and go, okay, I'm going to take this one path and my life's going to be linear, and it never is. The second thing is that be open and flexible to hearing the outside opinions and influences. And also the importance of gaining these relevant mentors. So it sounds like to me that this professor had obviously had a major impact on your career path and career direction. But it is important, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later, but the importance of mentors and acquiring and gaining mentors at an early age to give you that direction. Talk about that a little bit, and to talk about how did it actually influence your path.
Yeah, it's always influenced my past. And that's why, I always told myself I would always, be a mentor to as many students and young professionals that I could, because it was so important to me. And mentorship, sometimes people put it in a box of formality. To me, the most important mentors in my life, like that conversation that I had with Dr. Jahara, was very informal. It wasn't a agenda based, set it up on Monday at 8 o'clock in the morning. It was more of that authentic conversation of like, where are your passions? I mean, if you're going to have a career, you need to be passionate about it. You're going to spend arguably more time at work than you are with your family. And so you want to make sure that you're getting out of bed every single morning with that passion. And the mentors that I have had throughout my career were more informal mentors, just people that I got to know, people that I hunted down to get to know, just people that had that same value system that I had and were authentic, and people I aspired to be like, whether it was their professional accomplishments, their personal accomplishments, but just people that had a very good approach on humanity. And a really good approach on inspiring people. That has been, and you've been one of them. I mean, you and I have kind of laughed about that we're about the same age, but yet we still try to, inspire each other in
Right.
different components.
Right. No, and I think that's true. And as you go up the career path, you're gonna have mentors that have been with you. You're gonna have new mentors, but I think you hit on something that we really talk a lot about with our students, and they may or may not quite understand it right now. But you really need to align yourself with people who have similar value systems, because
Right.
if you don't, at some point, the outcome is never going to end well, whether it's a personal relationship, a friendship, romantic, business, boss, employer, employee. Um, Expound on that a little bit, because I want our students to really truly learn that if it doesn't really feel right in their gut, it probably is not aligning with their foundation or the value systems.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot emphasize it enough that, I think some people try to line up mentors because of certain accomplishments. And
Mm-hmm.
um, that's their basis for trying to have these coaching relationships. At the end of the day, the most successful people, and I feel I've worked with titans in the industry, the most successful people that I have seen are those people who check their titles at the door, are passionate every single day, not only about the job that they have, but more importantly, the people that work for them,
Mm-hmm.
and really have that. You hear the term is kind of overused, authentic leadership. Well, what does that actually mean? All that means is that you love working with people, you love appreciating the differences in the people that you work with, and you focus on people's strengths. I mean, with my teams, whether it was at Coca-Cola, the American Cancer Society, or today, I never focused on development plans because to me, it was just such a negative approach. I mean, people are individuals. I come with certain strengths, you come with certain strengths. So my high performing teams were high performing because I focused on people's strengths, not
Mm-hmm.
what they lacked. And I learned that candidly through a lot of terrific mentors throughout my career.
Mm-hmm. No, and I think that you brought up a lot of points, because, like I said, and here's here's an interesting thing that we've all of our lives have been incredibly interrupted, disruptive, upruptive during this COVID process. But it's also, though, if you don't lose anybody you love, in the spirit of silver linings, and we talk about this a lot, um, you should be using this time to first of all, I think we're going to see a lot of corporate empathy going forward. We're going to have a greater understanding of one another, what people are going through, because none of us really know what anybody's going through right now. Like I'm dealing with a distressed business. My dad had a hairline fracture in his hip. He just turned 87. They got hit by a dadgum hurricane. People don't know what you're dealing with. You got a son at school and those types of things. So I think we're going to have a lot more empathy and understanding. And Sharon, one other thing that's kind of coming out of some of the interviews and the things that I'm doing is one key question I'm going to start asking potential employees is particularly the young ones is, what did you do to improve yourself and others during this COVID period? I think it's going to become a litmus. Did you learn a skill? Did you help others? Did you do something you ever had always been, you wanted to do? In my case, I wanted to write a book and take this program virtually. But don't you think that your advice to right now use this time to self-improve, improve the lives of others?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I mean, one of the reasons why I ended up taking this job with Ongev, I mean, what we're doing is improving the life of patients, empowering patients. And, if you asked me this time last year, would this be a job leading a startup? Would that be something that I would want to do? I'm not sure if I would have said yes to that, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to your point, there's so much positives that have happened with people during this COVID pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of it, unfortunately, if people have been seriously affected, as you said, but having the ability to teach companies people can work from home. There's,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many funny YouTubes do we see? I mean, I have two bulldogs that
Right. I love those videos.
reappear in every single Zoom call that I have, and it's just kind of the new way I think people are gonna go to business. So, for youth, that's an interesting dynamic. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they need to think through. Like I remember when I first started, I loved at 20 years old getting up and going to the office at Coca-Cola and
Right.
sitting in these meetings. It's a very different dynamic, and the importance of just going backwards a little bit in our conversation, the importance of having the right social abilities to talk to people are even more important because now you're on a computer. You may be on a computer for the next several years. So
Right.
that communication skills, I think right now are probably the number one thing that kids going into the workforce need to have. And those communication skills are in person, virtual, etc. I think that's a really important skill that you have to really focus on.
Yeah, and I tell you, I think you hit that right on that. And one of the things we talk about in my book, and we talk to our kids about all the time, is that even in a virtual environment, some of the old standards and rules still apply. You still got to bring that heat. You like
Right.
like 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 the looking in the eye and be prepared for the interview and know more about the what kind of value that you would bring to the organization and know more about Sharon Byers than she knows about you when you're interviewing the process. But the bright side too is that kids are so sophisticated. They're digital natives. They've grown up with technology, digital platforms, handheld devices, wireless, social media, and all this kind of stuff that they can parlay that into future jobs and future opportunities. So let's dive into your career at Coca-Cola, because and I had been working. Well, I stocked my dad's Coca-Cola cooler when I was 10 years old in Lower Alabama, and then was in Birmingham. Got to know that bottler really, really well, and worked with them. I've been working with the organization for 25 years, and I'm so always so fascinated about the Coca-Cola Company. But you had a massive, long-term, successful career within that organization. Talk about so how did you originally get to the Coca-Cola Company coming out of Auburn? Was
Yeah,
that your goal?
it was my goal. The reason why Coke was my target company to work for is because I had aspirations to travel internationally and just didn't have the financial means to do it. So it was really a personal reason why I wanted a job with Coke. Plus, I felt, Coke's such a global company that there would be a lot of opportunity to move around and really define my business passion. which sounds very high level. But how did I get hired at Coca-Cola? I sent over 200 resumes to different departments at Coke.
All
And
right, now I want to stop you right there, because what I tell these kids now, because by the way, now you hit on a big one. What I first of all, be relentless, be persistent. They don't really truly understand the human touch that we used to have to go, to the library and the resources and the
right,
encyclopedia and yellow pages and handwritten notes and find these people and follow up, and no cell phones and the rigidity of voicemail systems at Coke and all that. But the headline is persistent relentlessness. And I use a fishing analogy, Sharon. I say in the old days, it would take 100 casts to get 8 job bites, to get 2 interviews. I think now in post-COVID, it's going to be 500 to get 8 to get 2, because you're going to have so many unemployed people in marketing services that are willing to take a lesser job for a lesser salary. So talk about, because this is, 200 resumes. I want people to think about that. Line up 200 pennies on a counter and think about Sharon Byers putting 200 resumes out within that big old building at the global world headquarters of the Coca-Cola Company.
And the other thing, so even though it may be tough for going after the COVID fiasco, but for me at Coke, the average age of people that were employed at the time when I sent those 200 resumes was around 30. So you have to think about, I was 20
Right.
years old trying to sell myself to arguably the biggest brand in the world. And I had an
Right.
undergraduate degree in finance. And again, my resume ended up falling on a South African's desk. He picked up the phone and called me. The same day, I got about 15 rejection letters from Coca-Cola.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Hutchings, I don't know if you ever worked with him, Vince, but
Mm-hmm.
Chris said, hey, Sharon, I saw your resume. It's interesting. I'd like for you to come down to the world headquarters of Coca-Cola
Wow.
and talk to me about why you want to work for Coke. And, I was 20 years old and I said, well, I just got all these rejections from Coca-Cola. So is this real or not? And he just kind of laughed. So, I ended up convincing him to hire me into a training program that rotated me around, that they were newly creating, to rotate
Wow.
around in different accounting functions. And my father always taught me, just whatever the job is, just be the best at it, even if you
Yeah.
don't,
Amen.
and so I ended up getting hired, making nothing. I made $18,000 a year,
Right. Right.
and I was the best
But
intern.
by the way, you were damn glad to get that 18,000. You were damn glad to be there, and you were
I
willing to
was.
do anything that it took to do. Trust me, I get that. I was told one time down there by actually, it was 2 fraternity brothers of mine's father, big guy, McNeil. He said, "You'll never ever work with this organization," and that pissed me off and motivated me more than anything, because a long time ago there was a certain corporate arrogance within Coke of the old guard, and I'm talking about decades ago.
Right.
And so for you to parachute in there after 15 rejection letters with an undergrad degree, a young female back in the day, you really had to be, you had to be like, Clarice Starling. You were determined to prove them all wrong, right?
I was, and I was the only 20-year-old on the floor for years. I mean,
Wow.
and people to be young and try to add value and be taken
Mm-hmm.
seriously,
Mm-hmm.
and understand. I understood my value. Everyone else didn't understand my value, and
But
so
you understood it.
I did, and I had that confidence. And
Love it.
so I was good at everything they assigned to me. And if I didn't understand what I was supposed to do, I was resourceful. And I think those are the 2 things. Always have confidence and always be resourceful.
And by the way, if they had asked you to rearrange the broom closet, you were going to be the best in the world at rearranging that closet. Correct? That's what I could tell these kids. I'm like,
Yeah.
no assignment is beneath you, and whatever you're assigned, do the very best you can, and then the next one will be even better and better and better. And what I've encountered in this generation, I sound like my parents now, but a lot of the students in I call it the participation generation, they tend to think instant gratification. They're going to be the CEO in 3 months. They think Zuckerberg was an overnight success, but he worked his ass off. But there is no such thing as instant gratification, is there not?
There's not. And, I mean, even in every single job, even when I was perceived to be like the top of the pyramid, I still did a lot of administrative work.
Right,
Nothing to be
right.
beneath you at the end of the day, where you will have people who want to work for you as if you don't take that hierarchical approach. And nothing is
Mhm.
like, I mean, I did a lot of administrative stuff. I still do a lot of administrative
Sure.
stuff. I don't enjoy doing it. But hey, if it moves the business forward, none of us should be above any of it.
Mhm. So you rise all the way up within the Coca-Cola organization to the level of running uh, the sports and entertainment division. That's correct, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so and by the way, that is actually one of the most uh, highly visible jobs in the Coke organization in corporate America and in Sports America. And I think you were named to many top lists, as I recall, Sports Illustrated,
I
Sports
was
Business Journal.
very.
So talk about what led you into there, because you had a great stint within what they call the business affairs, which is really basically framing up all the business terms and objectives of every major sports and entertainment deal across the country. And then, of course, everybody in the world wants to work with the Coca-Cola Company. But sort of talk about within your role and your position, because I think you brought kind of the ESPN game day into the organization and very instrumental in the Final Four. So talk about some of those experiences.
Sure. I mean, I had spent 7 years overseas with Coke, going to 63 countries, and I had a great ability to do deal negotiations. I really wanted to come back to the United States, and so I was able to convince Melody Justice at the time to bring me into a role in what's business development, which business affairs, which is essentially the investment bankers for the marketing department.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I stuck with my strength, which was deal making, and also demonstrated my marketing abilities. And so when an opportunity came up to do deals for the collegiate side of the business, and it really was a transactional base, we really didn't have a lot of marketing. I took advantage of that, built out a marketing plan, and tried to
Mm-hmm.
describe to our executive leadership team how, when we're trying to build advocacy for our brands in the collegiate portfolio, which was just, we want to sell Coke in colleges. It was a massive marketing opportunity that Coke was missing. It's
Right.
the first time you're out of your house where you're making your own purchase decisions. So
Mm-hmm.
we built out an amazing marketing plan to really take the portfolio of colleges to the next level, outside of just I sell Coca-Cola on college campuses. And all of the college work and marketing that you see today really started with amazing agencies like Melt. But it all started with that one conversation that I had with our executive leadership team, that we were missing the point on the collegiate channel. And once I proved myself, not only as a deal person, but also someone who could think through marketing strategies, I never interviewed for another job at Coke. And to your point, Vince, I had the pleasure to have an amazing team to run sports and entertainment for North America, which we had over 500 relationships, from Taylor Swift to the NCAA to the Olympics. And, we were the most award winning team in the history of the company. And we're
Mm-hmm.
all at the time very proud of that. It was just an amazing opportunity. But how do you do that? You just have to continue to believe in yourself, focus on your strength, and see business opportunities and take advantage of them.
Well, I think you just hit on a big one, because I mean, if you think about it, it should have been the most obvious. Most big ideas is the most obvious ideas, but seeing that college campus as an opportunity to build brand love for life with with millions and millions of kids coming through there, multi-generational, where they're making their first decisions on an independent and liberty basis. But I think two overarching headlines out of that is that first of all, you had the wisdom to see the green and the white space, And the second one is that you had the courage to take that risk and take that shot. And what we tell our kids is that, and in my book, it's like, um, as Gretzky, the great Gretzky says, I've missed 100% of the shots I didn't take, and failure is only the failure to try. And so, and by the way, in corporate America, risk taking is not necessarily always rewarded, but frequently penalized.
Right.
So you took a lot of flack, and you took a lot of heat, and you probably took a lot of incoming from from a lot of sides in corporate America and corporate America and their bottling system for that. But obviously, to your point, but you were highly most successful team in the company history. But talk about your philosophy about risk or taking that shot. Particularly now in the environments we're all in now.
Yeah, I've never been afraid to take risk. If you think about me as an executive, I mean, I started with a finance degree from a public university, and ended up leading one of the largest marketing organizations in the world. And now have an opportunity to lead a startup. So risk taking to me should be part of everyone's DNA. You're not going to move forward unless you're willing to take risks, personally and professionally. And so my approach was always, and I talk about this with people that I mentor, you're going to get so many no's throughout your career. You'll have more no's than yeses. If you get a no, just hear a maybe, because that's not the right person to move you in the direction that you need to. And in 30 seconds, I talked about how we moved from a transaction-based college portfolio into a marketing powerhouse for advocacy to build billion-dollar brands like Coke Zero. Well, it wasn't that easy, to your point. And we certainly got a lot of no's. That's not going to work. That's not where we want to spend our money. But I believed it was the right business decision. So I kept going and kept moving. And it took probably a year to get finally a yes from the right person that had the right budget, so we could demonstrate to all the no's they were making the wrong decision.
Yeah, well, the two things, I say getting a big idea through Coke is almost like getting a bill through Congress. I mean, you have to build constituencies on top of constituencies to finally get to that yes. And the other thing that you unpacked, and we talk to our kids about it a lot, and it's in my book, NO does not spell the word no. It's the first two letters of not yet. So be relentless. Don't take no. Blow through those walls. And so you have this long, illustrious career at Coke. You could have retired and ridden off into the sunset, but you decide to take the chief marketing officer role at the largest nonprofit organization in the world, which is based in Atlanta, believe it or not, the American Cancer Society. And so, again, we talk to our students about risk taking. We talk to our students about pushing themselves out of their comfort zone. So going from a for-profit, one of the biggest profitable businesses on the planet, to a nonprofit, in a subject matter that really nobody wants to ever talk about. Talk about pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. I mean, nobody personifies that better than you. So talk about what you did, and you did some amazing, innovative things at the company with major entertainers, NFL, and you built a great team over there. But talk about the transition from profit to nonprofit. A lot of our students want to work in the nonprofit world, but they don't quite know or understand how or where to penetrate that, or how they can formulate their experiences on college campuses to translate into that. But for going from the head of sports and entertainment at Coke to the CMO of American Cancer Society, I mean, wow.
Yeah, it was a change. So at Coke, of course, I wrote big checks. At ACS, I had to ask people to write me big checks. So it was quite the difference. But I mean, I had again, I think the moral of the story is, when you have true relationships, you have true relationships. So when I went over to the American Cancer Society, my 4 grandparents died of colon cancer, so I had a passion for fundraising for cancer.
Wow.
Our ACS had double-digit declines in revenue, and the cost structure was out of control. So I needed to go over there and diversify their revenue portfolio, build new relationships, focus on acquiring new donors, not just 65 plus, and really dusting off a 105-year-old brand. And my experience at Coke was very applicable to do this. I mean, my gosh, it was Coca-Cola. So taking those competencies and applying it to the American Cancer Society. So by the time I left ACS, I was a chief development, marketing, and communications officer. So we had diversified all of our revenue portfolios. How did we do that? The relationships that I had cultivated at Coca Cola, almost every single one of my relationships came to the table. So we built out a very robust approach with the NFL. We have an amazing Coaches versus Cancer, which is every legendary coach in the NCAA involved. We branched out into the entertainment sector, and I encourage everyone to go out and Google Beat Cancer Like a Boss. The creative director was LL Cool J and his wife, Simone I. Smith. And we probably got about $10 million of their portfolio of friends and family like Mary J. Blige to pro bono a commercial talking about the importance of advocating for cancer research. So that was an amazing experience. By the time I left, we had turned the corner. We had growth. We had reduced cost. We had a brand that was on par with St. Jude's, which was our benchmark. And as you said, I brought in amazing leaders underneath me that really drove ACS to where it needed to be.
Well, I mean that is an unbelievable story, and you just hit on a big one, and I want you to talk about is that we talk about the value of not only building relationships, but we talk about lifelong relationships, whether personal, professional, friendship, romantic, business, whatever. But the first two letters of the word relationship are RE, and the first two letters of the word reciprocal are RE. And it's got to be a give and take. And we say with relationships, you got to nurture them, you got to cultivate them, you got to trim them, prune them, water them, fertilize them, give them sunlight. And obviously, translating and transitioning and transferring, major lifelong relationships you built at Coca-Cola into the American Cancer Society. But the key core of that was the strength of the foundation of the relationships that you had, how you had treated others, how they had treated you. Talk about your philosophy of building and maintaining relationships and instill the old school approach that our students need to hear.
Yeah, I think the one word that popped in my head when you asked me that question was listening. I think a lot of times we talk more than listen. And what I did at Coca-Cola, I really listened to my partners. Even though I was asking my partners to do certain business requirements and objectives, at the end of the day, I wanted a true partnership. I wanted to make sure that we were listening to what they felt they needed out of what we were trying to accomplish at Coca-Cola, as well as what we needed out of Coke. And I think the reason why all of my partners, from ESPN to the entertainment industry, et cetera, all did amazing work with me at ACS is because I was an executive that didn't say, I'm paying you, you have to do this. I always listened and tried to approach business as a true partnership, regardless of who was paying who. And I think that really bodes well in so many, whether it's personal or professional. I think that's a really important word to really think about.
Yeah, and it's got to be, if you're in any relationship and you don't feel like that there's a balance of the give and take, it's probably not a relationship that you need to stay in long term. And it's probably because at some point, if that reciprocation and appreciation is not there, it's going to create some friction on one side or the other of the equation, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, and I think, like I said, you're kind of the poster child for building and maintaining those relationships and helping others out and remembering it's a small world. And we tell these kids, like, the other thing we tell them, Sharon, too, and I wish I had learned this a lot sooner, and I still struggle with it, but particularly now, you really can't take any quote unquote rejection personally right now, because you don't know what somebody's going through or what factors influence the decision, or why they hired somebody over you, or you lost a pitch or you didn't, or a job interview or something like that. But you really can't take any of this personal, can you?
No, I mean, I don't, whether it's COVID or not, I mean, you have to have super thick skin. I mean, you're going to have
Right,
rejection,
right,
period. And,
right,
it depends on how you handle rejection,
right.
how you hear the rejection. I am coaching a lot of people that got laid off and they're taking it so personally. I'm like,
Right, right.
right? I mean, take it as an opportunity to think about, like, this is probably the best thing that could ever happen to you. Maybe you want to change careers. Maybe you want to
Right.
go into a different segment. And, I mean, I think, sometimes rejection hurts. I mean, we've all been rejected, but it's all in how you handle it. And how you think about it, because it's nothing but growth. And, trust me, I mean, I've been rejected my whole life, it
Mhm.
seems. But, I,
Hey,
I always,
they asked me and you what business we're in, which we say we're in the rejection business,
right.
right?
Right, but it's okay,
Right.
and I try to I have an 18-year-old daughter, and I try to teach her that, hey, it's just part of being a human. I mean, everything isn't handed to you. And if you get mad that so and so got handed something and you woe is me and you didn't, then you're never going to be able to get yourself into the right mental state to get what you should be getting.
Mhm.
And I just think, just being positive, even in a time that may not feel like you can be positive, finding that one element of inspiration and focusing there is the best thing you can ever do.
No, I think that, and so talk about um, because talk about the things and the styles that you look for when somebody approaches you, and I ask you, and I say that because Sharon, you would be shocked at how many resumes I get that are sent to a generic Melt website,
Mm,
info at Melt ATL, to whom it may concern, attached is my resume, and I need to make X dollars. The first thing I do with that is flush it,
right.
because they're communicating what type of employer, what type of effort, or what is only as important as you make it that they would be for Melt. Because by the way, it's not like you and I got to go to the Auburn Library and look this stuff up anymore. I mean, it's at the palm of your hands.
Right.
And so, as opposed to saying, you know, hey, Miss Byers, War Eagle, congratulations on your multiple success. I'd love to seek you out as a mentor and advisor. I mean, it's like a blind date or passing a billboard on the interstate. Which one are you going to notice and which one are you not? Right? I mean,
Right.
what gets your attention in a positive manner, and what are turnoffs for you if somebody is approaching you for a job or career advice or mentoring or just a basic introduction?
Yeah, I mean, I think number one, you need to research who you're talking to.
Bingo, bingo.
That is the number one. I agree with you that it is frustrating and annoying when you just kind of get these code calls and say, "I see you worked at Coke," and they know nothing else beyond
Right,
that. Because
right.
you want go-getters, and a go-getter is going to demonstrate that they're going to invest the time and understand who they're talking to. And it's not an ego thing; it's more of demonstrating your capabilities around, investing time. If this individual is going to spend time with me and coach me in my career, I have an expectation that they are prepared and they've done their research. So that's kind of like a generic thing. But when I actually talk to people, I really look at the authenticity. Um,
Bingo, bingo.
why are they talking to me? What do they want to gain out of the conversation? And are they authentically interested in, like, different, pros and cons of my career, or are they just kind of checking the box to say that they talked to someone who used to work at Coca-Cola?
Mhm.
So, do a lot of research, be authentic, be who you are. Don't try to act like someone you're not, because that comes across so often. I mean, as leaders, we want teams that are filled with diverse people, whether that's diversity of skin color, diversity of education, diversity of personality, diversity of experience. So you don't have to be a cookie cutter person to have an amazing career. The more unique you are, I think the more interesting employers are in you.
And you just hit on a huge thing, and I tell these kids that I say, hey, look, I want you to be authentic, and I want you to express yourself, and I don't even necessarily have to agree with I mean, I want you to do it in a respectful manner, but be your authentic self. Be true to thyself, right? I mean, it still goes back to that, and I think that key word is authenticity and preparation. And because Sharon, I tell our students, it's not a job application; it's a job process. It's a job audition, and all of these tangibles and intangibles go into formulating the impression and the opinions that you and I will factor in when we're making a hiring decision, because it's our butts on the line when we're making that type of commitment to bring somebody on board. So you hit on a lot of our playbook. So in closing this fascinating conversation, what have been some of your long time go-tos as it relates to books or podcasts? I know that I still keep the copy of Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People that my dad gave me many years ago, and Norman Vincent Peale's The Power of Positive Thinking and those types of things. Are there some recommended reading or listening or viewing that you would recommend to our students? And you've got a rising college student as well, and of course they don't listen to us; they will listen to others. But so maybe our students will listen to your recommendations.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have like a go-to, but what I always do is go out for people that I really aspire to be like.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love Tom Cook. I listen a lot to what he has to say. A lot of the, TED Talks are all amazing and diverse.
Right.
Those are the types of information I go after. I don't have time to read.
Mm-hmm. No,
So
you
that's
don't.
always a challenge for me. But yeah, I mean, I go out and try to listen to as many TED Talks as I possibly
Mm-hmm.
can.
Yeah,
So
because
that's
to the headline is you always be curious, because you're never too young or never too old, to learn and better yourself, or and learn skills and those types of things. And like I said, I mean, that's going to be a litmus question: is what did you do for yourself and others, during COVID? But we could go on all day. This is amazing. I so appreciate your time. You're going to get tremendous feedback, probably immediately, from our students. Sharon Byers, my long-term friend, personally, professionally, mentor, great relationship, CEO of Ongev, previously major player at the Coca-Cola Company and the American Cancer Society, very involved in Auburn University, gives back much with her time and her passion contributions down there, as we try to keep our Tigers and War Eagles straight as well. But Sharon, we so appreciate your time and advice and words of wisdom to the students of virtual Melt University, and Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas. Thank you, Vince. I loved it.
Thanks, Vince. Hope you enjoyed today's virtual class. We'll be back soon with another edition of Melt University 2020.